Hello and welcome to the Fit Mess podcast, in whatever form it's about to take. We have been struggling to put together consistent shows for a long time, and this is not me belly aching. This is me just trying to be transparent about what's been going on with us, because one of the things that Zach and I have talked about so much is making changes, and when things don't work, you got to change them. You got to try something different. You got to ask for help. And things have not been working for us the way we've been doing this show for many, many, many years now. And I'm going to turn that music down, doing this live for the first time. And so, yeah, we're doing that. We're mixing things up, easy for me to say. And we're bringing in some new co-hosts and really changing the entire approach to how we're going to be doing this show. We've been talking a lot about men's mental health for a long time. I think the focus of our content will still help that in one way or another. But with the mess that the world is and the mess that many of our lives are, it's so much bigger than that. And so that requires more hands on deck to deal with the issues that we want to talk about. So I want to welcome in two faces you've seen or at least heard on this show before, one more recently than others. But my new co-hosts, Joe Villegas and Jason Haworth, are going to be joining us. Zach is off today for reasons we'll get into on another show, and it'll be a big surprise later. We'll talk about that another time. But I've already talked too much. Joe, Jason, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to work with you guys and see what this turns into.
Yeah, man, pumped to be here, and I know I've co-hosted a couple times with you before. It's always a blast. We've had a few of our own little episodes elsewhere. It's been a good time.
Yep.
But super honored to be part of this and be here with Jason and everybody, and get to share our insights and BSing and whatnot. It's gonna be fun.
I'm looking forward to the whatnot, especially.
Yes, mostly whatnot.
Yeah, and Jason here. Thanks for the kind words in the intro. Joe, excited to work with you and see where this goes. And Jeremy, you and I have known each other forever. And I think you bring up a really salient point. The world is a shit show and a storm of chaos right now. So, how do we get together and talk about these things and hopefully help with our mental health, but also some of the physical challenges and then some of the actual other real world things that are happening right now and, which all contribute to that mental state.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I'm excited about for this, is because you two guys have played big parts in my life. Jason you and I have known each other for decades. We've been friends for a long time and talked about, the real shit, the hard shit and all that. And how very old we are. And Joe, you've been instrumental in a lot of massive changes in my life for the better because of your training and your wisdom. And so we'll talk a little bit about sort of your guys' background so the audience knows, who you guys are coming into this. But it's just, this show started because Zach and I were having very open and vulnerable conversations about our struggles and the things we were trying to do to get better. And, many times, Jason, those conversations spilled over into your living room. And so I'm excited to bring your perspective into this. And Joe, you've been coaching people through a lot of this stuff, including me, for a long time. So you guys both bring incredible insight that has influenced my life in a lot of great ways. And so it makes a ton of sense to bring the people that have played that role for me into this show. So I'm just gushing here because I'm excited about what this is going to become.
Yeah, for sure. Jason, why don't you take it away? Give us your background, brother.
So Jason Haworth, Sagittarius. Born during the Nixon administration. So my background in history is in tech from a business level perspective, but I've been married for coming up on 28 years. Jeremy was one of the groomsmen at my wedding. I've got two lovely daughters. They're 23 and 19. That tells you how old I am. I live just north of Seattle in a little town called Everett, and I watch ferries pass by out my window while sitting in my home office, which is great. But my background is in a variety of different technical disciplines, but primarily networking and security. I got started doing that in 1997. I was an ethical hacker for a short period of time, which is just a way of, getting to break shit without people getting mad at you. And then moved that into other careers. I've got a few patents. I've been published in Forbes and some other places. And then recently, I guess not that recently, but about 4 years ago, I had a bit of a health scare where I ripped out my distal bicep tendon and decided that I was going to use one of the applications that I created to actually try to improve my health. And that really set me kind of on this fitness journey where I kind of went from being out of shape 285 pounds into relatively better shape 205 pounds in 4 months through a strict vegan diet and exercise regime, and then put protein back in and packed on about 35 pounds of muscle. So that part's been pretty good. Since then, I've been, in this tech industry, wandering around things and playing with AI in new and interesting ways, and looking at how that affects not just the overall ecosystem of technology, but also how it affects healthcare, mental health, and the way that people are interoperating with it on a day-to-day basis is having a definite impact on the way that people are interacting with the world, and kind of trying to see around corners and predict where these things are going to go is part of what I'm hoping to bring into the topics on this podcast. So we can actually start talking about things in the proper context and providing information to the listening audience, but also getting each other's perspectives on these areas so that we can figure out, how it is we as individuals in this world where maybe, the Terminator is coming, maybe not. How it is we're all going to survive and what bunker to go live in.
We did, and we touched on some of that a few episodes ago. So if you want sort of a quick snapshot of the perspective Jason will be bringing, we'll post the link to that episode in the show description for this episode. We talked a lot about, your wearable trackers and the information that you're giving up for free with your, $6 a month membership to whatever device you're wearing, right. And what that's really giving away. So the link to that is in the show description for this episode. But Joe, you have, like I said, you've coached me through a lot of hard times. You've coached a lot of people through a lot of hard times. Tell the audience again, for those who are new to you, what do you bring to the show here?
Yeah, for sure. So, fitness was a huge part of my life, but wasn't always. So I got out of college after packing on a freshman 15 and a sophomore 20 and a junior, whatever. It was a lot. And, started working out, basically joined a CrossFit gym, kind of similar to Jason, lost a whole bunch of weight in about 6 months. This is back in 2011. And got approached by the owner, and he was like, "Hey, you're here all the time. People like you a lot. Would you want to coach?" I was like, "Sure." No background in sports or fitness. I was a band kid with a math degree. Super
Nerd.
Cool. Yeah, fucking nerd. But anyways, so I got into coaching and just fell in love with it. Fell in love with learning, getting to share my learnings with people, helping them see them succeed. It was really, really special. And started coaching folks online, and really kind of dived in the rabbit hole of I can tell them what to do. I know what they need to do, but they're not doing it. So it was, how do I learn how to help them between the ears? And so kind of fast forward, started working more with companies, doing wellness programs and so forth. And then I got more into the personal development space. So I do quite a bit with there. So I'm a senior leader for Tony Robbins and a master trainer for a program called the Elite Mentorship Forum that one of my mentors puts on that changed my life, quite literally. So I facilitate cohorts for that group, and really just love working with people, helping them see they have resources within themselves they didn't even know were there to break through and just get to that next level. So, hoping I can bring some useful insights to the show, but really I'm excited to kind of just hear your guys' perspectives on things and bounce these ideas around, because there's just so much going on, and all of us bring a different take on so many different topics together. I think it's going to be very interesting, even just for ourselves, let alone the listeners, of what's possible. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you guys here. And just, for anyone who may be brand new to this, that you don't know me, I'll just give you the quick snapshot of me. I'm a guy who hurt his knee a long time ago, and in his recovery found himself on a bike a lot, where in the process of riding that bike to work every day, fell in love with being present in the moment, because if you don't on a bike in the city, then you're going to die. And that just opened me up to a lot of different things about different ways to think about my life, and it opened up my mind to meditation and really just exploring how to live a happier, healthier life. And it's just been sort of one thing after another. You kick down one door and you find three on the other side, and you pick one and you go through and just keep adding these things to your life that just improve it exponentially over and over again. I mentioned Zach and I were sort of talking about these things, which led to the start of this show. And we've shared them here for the last few years. So I invite you to go back to episode 1. I think we're at 289 or something now. So a lot of our history to explore there. And Zach will be joining us. And I think that's the other thing too, is the format of this I'm excited about, because it's not always going to be the 3 of us or the 4 of us. Sometimes it'll be one of us. Sometimes it'll be any pairing of us. We all live very busy, full lives. We have kids, we have things going on. And so that's, again, part of the change here, is being able to present what we're going through and what we're finding that works in new ways that hopefully are helpful and more consistent for you, so that this is an ongoing and consistent benefit for you. But I do want to kind of get into a topic a little bit. I think, we've sort of laid the groundwork of who we are and what we're trying to do. I do want to talk about change, because that's what we're doing here. We're doing something different. And I've been sort of ignoring the signs from the universe saying, hey, when something's not working, stop doing it, or stop doing it the way you're doing it. And so here we are. I finally, this isn't the big teaser trailer about, hey, wait a month when we're going to eventually make a change that might be a thing. We're just ripping off the Band-Aid. We're just doing things different now. And so Talk to me about, Joe, let's start with you. I know you've coached a lot of people through this sort of decision process of things aren't working. What are some of the steps you take to make that change when whatever you're doing isn't serving you anymore?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first things first is recognizing that, uncertainty is uncomfortable. Like human beings crave order. And so wherever you're at in the process, like if you're feeling uncomfortable, like it's a good thing. It's actually a good thing because you're recognizing that things probably do need to change. And what I would suggest if you're listening to this and you are getting that itch, like something's up, is don't wait. Don't wait until you hit this like threshold of I can't stand where I'm at anymore, so I have to do something different. Like don't fall in that rabbit hole. And so to your point, Jeremy, and you kind of subtly talk about this a lot, is like being open to experimenting and just like trying new stuff and seeing what works and what doesn't. I think above all else is like being open to the fact like this is a new exploratory stage in your life, is really going to help make the process a bit easier to wrap your brain around, for sure.
Jason, you've had to make changes from time to time?
I make changes all the time. So you can go on LinkedIn and look at my profile and see how often I switch jobs, how many different careers I've had, different industries. I've been C-levels, I've been board members, I've published a book. My problem might actually be that I have too much neuroplasticity. I keep getting interested in things and getting stuck into topics. And that probably has something to do with the fact that as a kid growing up, I had to learn to be adaptive because I moved around a lot. I was an Air Force brat. And that forced me to actually be open to new experiences and try different things. And Joe, like you said, human beings, typically speaking, their comfort zone is like the general law of physics. Bodies in motion tend to want to stay in motion. Bodies at rest tend to want to stay at rest. And there's a certain entropy period that we go through as we get older where things just kind of start slowing down and our brains stop being able to adjust and make those adaptations. And it's not just that it's an age-related thing. It can be a pressure-related thing. It can be a biochemical-related thing. All those things come into play. But the important part of all this is to make sure that you're keeping yourself open to new experiences and new perspectives. And that doesn't mean that you're always going to like it. There's going to be things that you try, you're going to be like, that sucks. What was I thinking? And, there's going to be different relationships that you're going to have throughout your life that you're going to try new things with them. And sometimes they're going to work and sometimes they're not. And that can be scary. And that can lead you to not want to do things and not want to make those changes. But ultimately speaking, need to be open to new experiences. And part of this podcast, I think, is going to be talking about some of those new experiences that people are going to be seeking out, but also a lot of them are going to be ones that are thrust upon us. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of new experiences that will be thrusted upon you as an individual over the next 10 to 15 years, because the landscape of the world is changing dramatically.
I'm sure I'm attributing this quote to somebody completely wrong, but I think it was George Clooney who said, I've learned nothing from success. I've learned everything from my failures, right? And it's just from going out there and trying different things and getting to where you need to go. Because it is much harder to figure out what worked when it worked than it is when something didn't work and your role that you played in making it not work. But to the point of change, Joe, I know you and I have talked about this. I can't remember if it was on a microphone or not, but there have been studies recently about our experience with aging. And how, for many of us, life tends to pass much more quickly as we get older, not because of the measurement of time as a smaller ratio of your overall existence, like 1 year out of 70 is a much smaller ratio than 1 out of 5. But the idea that because we get so locked in our habits, locked in our routines, that our experience never changes, the perception of time has been measured by scientists as passing faster when you don't have new experiences. That's why when you're a kid and everything is new, every experience you have is brand new, it feels like it takes forever, right? Those first 15 years of your life are like, so many of your memories come from that because it felt like such a massive chunk of your life. As you get older, you have less of that. And so they've discovered that by sort of getting stuck in our routines, we don't have the same sort of experience with time in it, and it seems to go much, much faster. So there's a lot of reasons to do it, because you can grow, you can be happier, you can experience new things, but also just makes your time on this planet feel a little bit longer, which I think is a really interesting thing to consider if you are like trying to wrestle with what change do I need to make in my life.
Yeah. And if you're not like trying to, and it sounds weird, like if you want to have spontaneity in your life, but if you're not like planning some variety, life will tee it up for you.
Well, yeah, well, and that's what Jason's talking
You know,
about.
that's what Jason's saying. It's
Like it or not, it's coming.
Yeah, and you're going to call it a problem, right? But in reality, like you said, if you are out there just trying new things, and I like Jesse Itzler's model, the big ass calendar, right? It's like you plan one big thing a year, 6 little mini adventures, and like just get out there and try stuff, and it makes the year. You can do everything the same, everything else the same, but it makes the year that much more exciting because you have some planned variety that's in there. It's like such a super simple, like basic way to do it, but like I did it for all of 2024, and like I can't go back. It was cool, you know. I got my big ass calendar's right here on my wall. I can't see it, but
How big is the big ass calendar?
It's
Is it
like
like
a
6
windshield.
feet by 6 feet?
it's like a windshield. It's probably like maybe 5 by 4 or 4.5 by 3, something like that. It's big.
That's a big ass calendar.
It's pretty
It's a
big.
large ass calendar.
Yeah, relative to my other calendars, it is the largest one.
Are there things that you guys are, I mean, aside from starting this new podcast with me, what other challenges are you guys taking on? What changes are you trying to implement in your lives?
I'm working with a public speaking coach to write a keynote. So it's like a cohort that I'm in. So it's a lot of, just getting in front of strangers and talking
Yeah.
and learning how to perform like an actual speech, not just get up and blab
But that's
away
not
for-
necessarily like you've been sort of public speaking for a while. You're sort of sharpening that blade, right? This is
Yeah.
something you've been doing for a while.
Yeah, but I'm definitely the small fish in the pond for sure this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It is like I'm working with real professionals. I don't know if I ever told you. So I went to their they had like a 2-day workshop I went to initially, and I sat down. The one guy next to me, he founded and sold The Art of Shaving. You know that company?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's cool. And the other guy next to me was a 7-time kickboxing world champion.
Jeez.
And I was like, well, I live 15 minutes away. I'm from Jersey. I sent an email once, like I'm like, with those, like these dudes, like, and that was just the three of like the whole room was like polished, accomplished people. I was like, holy shit. Like, how did I end up here? So it's a lot of those folks, but it's cool. Like I am being challenged in ways I didn't think would come up.
Yeah.
So that's
cool.
it's been fun so far. Jason, how about you?
I'm actively engaged on 2 startups right now. One's in stealth mode. We are building something that will help secure the internet, hopefully from bots and content scrapers. The other one is our wearable technology tracker, Uprove. I continue to kind of work through some of those problems. And then I'm also looking for a regular job too. So I got a lot going on. And it's interesting. The market space is different right now. So a lot of this AI coming out there is making people in the tech sector, making their jobs, it's hard to come by those jobs because they're actually reducing headcount. You've got AWS, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, everybody cutting bodies, and they're calling them underperformers. They're probably not underperforming.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't match the spreadsheet requirements, and it makes it easy to have them egress so they can figure out a way to, show some margin growth. But I also think that they can take a lot of those jobs and apply that money to their AI strategies and their offshoring strategies. So we've got an interesting problem and dilemma here in the US where we have a lot of people whose jobs are going to start being taken over by automation in the white collar sector, similar to what happened in the blue collar sector. And there's going to be a lot of people with free time who will probably start lots of different podcasts and lots of business regimes and everything
Hey,
else
I
out
can
there.
tell you, podcasting, according to the internet, is the fastest, easiest way to become rich and famous. So get in line, buddy.
We're set.
Get in line.
Yeah, we're
Oddly
set.
enough, if you use the AI research lab functions built by Google and you type in podcasting, I will encourage all of you to play with that. Yeah, see what it says, put in a variety of questions, statements to the left and the right of it, and see what it spits back. And you will start to see why AI is maybe not the intelligence you think it is.
It's a hell of a writer if you give it the assignment, though, right?
Yeah.
It is. So, I mean, it's crazy. So I used it I've got a couple of blog posts that I put together, and I didn't use it to write the blog post. I used it to edit the content. And what I basically did was it took everything that I did and rewrote it and put things into the right proper bullet points, put all the orders in place. And then I read it and I'm like, this is like 85% accurate compared to what it was before. That's actually not bad. I can play with that 15% margin and go and clean those things up.
Yeah.
And then I've watched people in my little high-tech space write their own blog entries and post those pieces up on big corporate websites, and I'm like, well, yeah, this was demonstrably edited by AI in a way that makes it
yeah.
horribly inaccurate. And people don't look at it anymore, and we're just kind of going, okay, we're going to
Right.
trust you, big computer. Skynet had never stored us wrong.
Right.
Well,
It's
and how much are they paying for that blog that was written in 3 seconds versus the one they would have paid someone, the hourly wage or whatever to create that content?
Well, and oddly enough, it was probably the same person that would have created that content 4 years ago. It's probably the same person in the same role doing the same thing. They just went from 3 of them to 1 of them.
Right.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the one that's there is overworked and inundated because everyone thinks that your job's easy now. You can just do this. Well, I guess if I skip all the proofreading, I can do that.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And if I can forget all the content, sure, why not?
Right.
Let's just make garbage because everyone likes to consume garbage. And then the funny thing is, they use AI crawlers that go and scrape this AI created content to build itself in, so it's its own self-replicating problem of misinformation. They've experimented with this and shown this 1,000 times. I mean, they're really easy to find these things out there. Kind of my point, though. It's just remember, artificial intelligence can be just as dumb shit stupid as regular human intelligence.
It's interesting. Neil deGrasse Tyson said one time that he thinks that AI will actually bring the end of the internet because it will fill the internet with so much unreliable content that people will stop going to it as a resource and start looking elsewhere, right? Maybe looking to big media or something a little more trusted than whatever AI told AI and then produced a third version of that same incorrect piece of content.
Yeah, and if you look at the internet is not really the internet anymore. The internet is just a series of walled gardens. And by that, I mean domains of control that are wrapped around you. They're just somewhat, you just really can't see the walled edges because they put pretty flowers up. So if you use Google, you're really in the Google ecosystem and you're using that search engine, it's going through it, it's building that content for you, and it's sorting that information and indexing it in such a way that it is beneficial to Google. So that's why you have SEOs out there, search engine ordering functions, that let you go through and understand these pieces in context to stack rank things to give you better sets of information over time. And as the amount of information becomes larger and larger, you're going to see Google probably start promoting things that are more friendly to Google AI. You're already seeing Facebook do this. Facebook actually, there's a thing you can put on your website that's called a robots.txt file. And the robot.txt file can literally say, please do not index or scan me. And as a good participant on the internet, it's supposed to go, okay. And Facebook told everybody they're not going to honor it. Hey, we don't care. Okay. So, I mean, that just tells you where this is going.
Yeah. And that's a taste of the kinds of things that we'll be able to talk about on the show with your perspective, because it's not just tech news, right? Like that's not something that doesn't affect everybody. That affects everybody. That affects everything you're doing online. So like I said, this is more than just your mental health. This is more than your physical health. This is like managing and navigating this whatever world we're stepping into for the next decade and a half and beyond. So a lot of interesting perspective to come. Thank you guys for being here. We want to wrap things up. So as we wrap up this final episode, how about first episode together? Any closing thoughts you guys want to leave us with?
I just like that you landed this as the final episode already.
Hey, we gave it a shot. We did our best. And
it's like a Delta Airlines flight flying into Toronto.
This episode is landing just as delicately here at the end.
That's
all right. Well, thank you all for listening. Next time, hopefully Zach will be back. Who knows what's going to happen next time? Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just Zach. Maybe it's all 4 of us. Maybe it's some combination. You never know, but make sure you subscribe at thefitmess.com so you don't miss it. Also, now by underwhelming demand on YouTube. So make sure you check out the video. The link is also in the show description here for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back in about a week, maybe sooner. Who knows? I don't even know what we're doing anymore. It's all a whole new world. Talk to you soon.
We know this podcast is amazing and it doesn't seem to lack anything, but we need a legal disclaimer. Prior to implementing anything discussed in this podcast, it is your responsibility to conduct your own research and consult your physician. You should assume that these knuckleheads don't know what they're talking about, and they're not liable for any physical or emotional issues that occur directly or indirectly from listening to this podcast.